Hello again, and welcome back to Political Sociology, our presentation on religion and politics, religion and society. In this segment, I would like to concentrate on some elements of the relation between religion and politics in the post-socialist world, that is, in the states with which people in our program are most frequently concerned. And I want to start off by showing you some pictures. These are all pictures of representing celebrations of the holiday of Christmas, one of the central holidays in the Christian religion in Russia. The first is a greeting card showing a Christmas celebration in Russia in the period before the 1917 revolution. And what you can see in this picture is that the celebration is community based. It involves people in the community making representations, some of which are symbolic, to other people in the community in a manner that is designed to affirm their relations with one another. This is something that looks very close to Emil Durkheim's definition of religious practice as the society worshiping itself, as the elements of the social structure being performed. Now, after the 1917 revolution, when the Communist Party came to power, and the Communist Party's ideology was non-religious and in many respects anti-religious, some of the elements of observation and practice had to be transformed. So these images, images of Christmas celebration and Christmas greetings from the period when the Soviet Union was around, show something else. That is, some symbols that are associated with the holiday remain present, but they're not religious symbols, but symbols that are drawn out of the secular tradition. So you can see the figure who is known around here as Father Christmas, or Santa Claus, known as Father Snow or Father Frost in many parts of the Slavic world. He appears. This is a figure that is related to the legend of Saint Nicholas, but that element falls out of the story largely, together with symbols of the power of the state. That is, in particular, symbols of science and of military technology. And you see other symbols that are related to the Christmas tradition but are not explicitly religious in character. The tree, the star, which is a symbol that was shared between um, both the religious world of Christianity and the Communist Party. The celebration of Christmas was not usually marked as a celebration of Christmas during the Communist period, but as a celebration of the New Year, and the conflict between people in the social location who habitually celebrate Christmas and people in the social location who habitually celebrate the New Year continues to this day. And now let's look at the post-socialist period. In the post-socialist period, the elements of religious practice and religious affiliation have returned. The elements of the state that were introduced in the Soviet period are still present. So you see there, for example, the president of the republic participating in a religious ceremony for the commemoration of Christmas. What's interesting is the element that was there in the first slide, where you saw the community-based celebration, that is gone. The element that is missing is the community and the society, indicating that in the post-socialist period, religion moves closer to politics, and this is in fact something that happens for a variety of reasons in the post-socialist period. That is, what are some of the ways that we can talk about the reassertion of religious power in the period after the fall of state socialist governments in the late 20th century? First of all, The process of political change itself was in many places associated with a demonstration of the political power of religious institutions, because religious institutions played an important role in the demise and replacement of at least some state socialist regimes. And once religion comes back into the position in public life that from which it had largely been marginalized during the period of state socialism, it finds itself in a position to assert its interests as institutional interests, that is, as interests that have to be consulted in the process of the state making decisions. Some of these interests are political. That is, that religion moves increasingly into the role of being the agency that provides legitimating ideas for the state and for the institution of states, and religious representation comes to be demanded in more and more state institutions. Second, like any type of institution, the religious institutions of the post-socialist states have material interests. In particular, they have financial interests that are usually expressed in terms of exemption from the payment of tax and access to financing from state budgets. And they have property interests, especially related to return of control to religious institutions over properties such as churches, monasteries, and so on, which had been operated as a form of state property in most places during most of the period of state socialism. And third, access to state institutions and budgets comes to take on an ideological form, comes to be posed as a principle. One example of this that is probably important in most states is the reintroduction of obligatory religious instruction. Either it is obligatory that all students attend religious instruction, or it is obligatory that religious instruction be offered in all schools. And what this provides is a framework of finance and a framework of employment for religious institutions. But there is probably one element of the reassertion of the political power of religion that is important nearly everywhere in the post-socialist world, and that is the association of religion with the performance of ethnic identity. That is, religion becomes a framework for symbolic ethnicity. And I don't mean to make this sound sinister. I would guess that for most people who are affiliated with a religion but not especially religious, religion as symbolic ethnicity is the most frequently used function of religion that there is. That is, that we repeat to ourselves and justify to ourselves the categories that we identify with as social actors through things like the celebration of holidays from the religious calendar, participation in ritual. What happens in this system is that religion comes to establish a position for itself closely associated with the national identity, so that the association between nationality and religion becomes closer. In practice, this means that religion can be used to legitimate both the practice of violence in conditions of conflict, and also the acts of practitioners of violence in conditions of conflict. This is not the only function that the association of religious identity with national identity can have. Sometimes religious institutions can also act to set limits on the use of violence, or to act as agents of reconciliation. But the processes that we're seeing involve religious tradition being nationalized and national traditions being sacralized in ways that bring the relation between the identity of the state and the identity of the religious institution ever closer to one another. These phenomena occur not only on the level of domestic politics, but on the international level as well. That is, in the post-socialist period, we're able to see several intersections between religion and global politics. One form in which we can see this is through the global expansion of what's been called the religious right, that is, movements using religion and religious institutions to express opposition to social change related to gender equality, social change that is related to acceptance of different sexual identities and orientations and so forth. These are places where globally, regardless of the particular religions that are involved, there are international networks of religious institutions that tie religious institutions to political campaigns. Another field where we're able to see this is in the use of religion to promote a social ideology that is justified both in terms of association with national identity and with ideologies that are associated with national identities, but also with what is at least expressed as an opposition to globalization that is sometimes rendered as an opposition to imperialism. It is to say that another global intersection between religion and politics in the socialist world, and not only in the post-socialist world, is um, that religion becomes a vehicle for the resistance of local elites to the power of global elites. When I put it this way, it seems as though the principal power of religion in post-socialist environments is as resistance to change and sometimes as resistance to reconciliation. This is, of course, not the only possibility available. Um, if you look at the photo on the slide here, this is a photo of a monument in Serbia, in the city of Čačak. It is a memorial that was built in 1934 as a memorial to victims of the First World War. And the memorial is an obelisk with four sides. On the side you can see there is the cross, the type of cross that is associated with the Catholic religion. On the other three sides of the monument, there is an Orthodox cross, there is a Jewish star, and there is an Islamic crescent. So the monument was built to underline and emphasize the fact that victims of the First World War were members of all of the religious groups that had significant representation in the populations of the city. This is a monument that was built in 1934. It was controversial at the time that it was built. The Orthodox bishop of Čačak threatened to excommunicate any Orthodox priest who attended the dedication ceremony of the monument. The monument was destroyed, not completely destroyed, but damaged in 1941, when under the Nazis, Germany invaded and took control over Serbia. The damage that was done, the German occupiers left up the Catholic cross, the one that you saw in the photo, but damaged the symbols of the other religious traditions that were on the other three sides. And the monument remained in that condition for a long period after the damage was done in 1941, until it was renewed in 2007. The photograph that you see is from the ceremony of the rededication of the monument, and the people on the photograph that you see are the local heads of, representatives of, the Jewish, Islamic, Catholic, and Orthodox communities of Čačak. What I mean to suggest by telling you this story and by showing you the photo is that the relation between religion and politics, we often perceive it as dividing people. This is not the only possibility. There are alternative paths for religion. Religion in particular, you could argue that it is well suited to it because of the discursive character of its mission, can be an instrument, a carrier of reconciliation and of dialogue. And this possibility is based on the contention that all religions, regardless of their name and membership and sometimes competing interests, have shared understandings, shared obligations. If you were religious, it would be possible to say that they're all subject to the same superior power, so that it is possible that when we talk about relations between religion and politics in post-socialist environment, we talk mostly about interest and power, very frequently about conflict, but this is not the only possibility that is open.